Welcome, everyone, to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a podcast for women in transition in their careers and life. This week, I am honored to have on the show Dr. Barbara Mark. Dr. Mark has a deeply held passion for working with women in midlife and has built a decades-long career as an elite leadership, career, and life strategies coach and advisor to senior executive women. She is a recognized expert on the psychology of women and is a leading authority on the midlife stages of adult development and how these stages, inclusive of menopause, impact a woman's career, development, and life choices. Thank you so much for being here, Barbara. It's such an honor to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you. And so delighted to be with you, Kavita. Thank you for having me.
As soon as we kind of connected online, I was like, I have to meet you because we have such similar kind of visions and passions. So I'm just really excited to get your take on all of that.
Thank you.
So I just thought I would start. I was looking through your material, your website, and I came across this quote that I wanted to get your ideas and feedback on. And you say that, quote, I believe you deserve a fulfilling career and a meaningful life in your prime. What is the impact you want to have in the world? So maybe you can tell our audience, how did this interest in supporting women through midlife begin and what ignited it? And I understand it started at a young age. So perhaps you can kind of tell us a bit about your story and why this is so important to you.
Sure, sure. So strangely, I got very interested in midlife when I was in my very early 20s. I was studying psychology in my undergraduate work, of course, and in my graduate work, I came upon the work of Carl Jung, the Swiss psychoanalyst, and really, really loved his take on midlife. And I started reading a lot about his impressions and theoretical foundations of midlife, as well as a lot of other Jungian theorists. And God, it just really caught my attention and intrigued me. And
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I remembered being around midlife women as I was growing up. My grandmothers and my great aunts, when I was little, were midlife women.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the most interesting women. They were adventurous, they were confident, they had lost all of the sort of insecurity that they had had when they were a little bit younger, and they were adventurous and bold. And I thought, wow, I really like this. And so as I pursued it, I recognized, wow, it's a difficult time in adult development, this midlife period. And so I had always been interested in supporting women's issues. That started when I was in high school. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was committed to supporting women through these challenging and exciting stages of midlife.
That's so amazing because you had kind of these role models, I guess, as you were young and looking up to them, and I guess your curiosity led you to becoming a to pursuing your education as well. Is that
Yes,
yes?
yes, it did. I mean, I think that, oh, I've never met a person who went into psychology who didn't have some curiosity about
Sure.
what's going on in the mind and interested in dynamics in their own families and their own lives. And yes, certainly these women just embolden my path
Yes.
and fed my curiosity. So
Yeah.
it was great.
Yes. That's wonderful that you were able to identify that at a younger age, and then that's kind of led to where you are. So that's fantastic. And as I was when we met, I was intrigued because our businesses kind of have similar names, so they kind of mirror each other. And that yours is a time of my own, and mine is it's my time now. And so I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, what's kind of the parallel there? And that to me, it's kind of a bit of a sense of urgency, and then it's a kind of a time where it's necessary to explore our own selves. And so I don't know how you feel, but I think at this time it's kind of critical that the choices that we make now are really important for our future. And the choices we make depend, whatever we make now, it depends on how fulfilled we are in the future and are happy.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to bring that out and thought maybe you had some comments or thoughts on that aspect of it.
Yes, yeah, I do believe that you and I come at this from very similar point of view and a very similar thought about this time in a woman's life, that it is a moment, particularly in sort of the middle stage of midlife development, when a person is moving from one stage of life to another, and it can be exciting, it can be challenging, it should be traumatic, but it really is that time of self-investigation. And it's time when women really look at, is this really, who am I? Is this
Mhm.
really what I want to be doing? Am I fulfilled in what I'm doing? And so it really is, when I look at it for women, it is a time of my own. It's a time to self-reflect.
Mhm.
And and so I love that you sort of hand that back and say, it's your time. It's your time now.
Yes.
And I think that it's a we have a beautiful synergy with regard to that.
Yes. Yes. And I think often, I don't know what you feel, but often women, if you say it's my time now, it sounds like maybe you're being selfish. But I say to my clients and people, I say it's not. It's being finally giving yourself the time that you deserve to really uncover who you are and what you want, like you said, and ask those important questions that you just mentioned. So I'm curious from your psychology background, is there a particular reason at this midlife stage of adult development that we, our 40s and 50s and 60s, that we begin to ask these questions? Like, what's the scientific reason behind it? Or is there some kind of research around that says that it's normal to have start asking these questions at this stage of our lives?
Right, right. It is absolutely normal, and it is a predictable pattern of development, the same as a parent can watch their children go through predictable stages of development. And we as adults observe children going through them and recognize there's the terrible twos, there's the curious threes and fours, there's adolescence when they're going
Yes.
through a lot of like, who am I? And so these stages of development are predictable, and everyone goes through them differently. Everyone has their own timeline. And one of the things that sort of amplifies the research is the work done around the happiness curve, the U
Yes.
curve,
Yes.
and that the 40s, 50s, and 60s is really kind of at the bottom of the U curve. And it
Yes.
is that period of time when all of a sudden we have all of these adult responsibilities where we're striving in our careers, we're raising for a lot of people, they're sort of at the tail end of their raising their children as they get into their 50s, and also the difficult time that women go through when they're dealing with menopause. And so one of the most important things to look at is in that moment, a moment of that essence of midlife is when we confront our own mortality. It's when we have the recognition that time is limited,
Yes.
that time is finite, and we may not cognitively acknowledge that particular point, but it's happening psychologically,
Hmm.
independent of any intention on our own. It happens psychologically. It's part of the developmental process. And so that begets this internal questioning. Am I doing what I want to do? Am I happy? Why am I not happy? What would make me happy? And then for women, compounded by, I have so many clients say to me, I think I'm losing my mind as they're going through menopause or perimenopause.
Hmm.
And so There's a lot of research done on this and a lot of curriculum developed around looking at the stages of development. And so it is scientifically based, it is psychologically based,
Mm-hmm.
and we live through it. We get
Yes.
to the other side of it. The joyful part of it is that by the time we get into our late 50s, early 60s, the U curve starts to go up.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, I've studied a lot about this happiness youth curve, and I guess you're right that the good news is you're going up the this other side of the
Yes.
curve. That reminds me of the blue zones, and what
Yes.
I don't know if you saw that recent Netflix series where they talked about the different blue zones and why people are happy in those areas and
Ah,
how they live
ah,
through to be in their 90s and 100s. So that just
oh, I
yeah.
missed that. I'm going to
Yeah,
have
I
to
know
look
it's
for
it's
that
a
because
really good one. Yeah, it is a
oh,
really good
fabulous.
based on research that was done. But yeah, I think you're right. Like if I think back to my own when I turned 50 and when I was going through those, what you said, menopause and my kids leaving the home and my career was I was questioning the meaning of it. And it never really got down on me that it's because maybe I was thinking, what am I going to like at my mortality? You don't really think about it that way, but I'm glad you brought that up. And again, it is very common. And that's what I think it's important to talk about because if listeners are going through this, it's important for them to know that it is common and they're not going crazy, right?
I am not going crazy. It
Yes.
is absolutely perfectly normal. And it really, I do find it helps my clients a lot to understand this developmental process, to understand and appreciate that this is a time of a really deepening quest for purpose and a sense of meaning in their lives. And also, it's a time when there's an inclination to want to make rash decisions. I need to get out of this job. I hate this job. I feel purposeless in this job. I'm not happy in my marriage. That's a
Mhm.
big perimenopause one because often husbands don't understand what is going on with my partner here.
Yes.
She's different.
Yes.
And so it's very helpful for women to understand this is absolutely normal. And it's great to talk with someone, to be able to talk you through what are you thinking about? Let's not make rash decisions. Let's really look at what's happening in your job, what's happening in the rest of your life, and normalize it.
Yes. Yes. I don't know what you feel, but whenever I see that term midlife crisis, it kind of I don't resonate with it because I don't really
Mhm.
think it's a crisis. I
Right.
always say
Yeah.
it's rather turn it around and it's more of an opportunity, right? To
A huge
yes,
opportunity, a
yes,
great, exciting, and enlivening
yes,
opportunity.
yes, yes. Maybe just to switch gears a bit, your focus in your practice, I believe, has really been on developing leadership skills, especially and resilience, especially in executive women. And because I think we had talked about, you saying that women naturally bring skills that are needed on the global scale. And so maybe you can talk to a little bit about that and how do you develop these skills in these women and like you talked a little bit about having somebody to talk to, but why do you think coaching in this respect is so important and so needed in that area?
Right. The coaching is incredibly important and incredibly helpful for women. Women are, we're well known to seek perfection
Yes.
and to be mired in self-doubt. And those are not good things to embrace when you're in a leadership position. And so the work is really looking at clarifying and embracing one's self-worth, developing a sense of confidence and clarity around that, looking at why in this stage of life one might be feeling like that. And again, particularly if you're going through menopause, I mean, there are these horror stories of women having a hot flash in the boardroom, actually, or in a presentation, perhaps to the board or the leadership team, and what usually the all male board
Yes.
or the
Yes.
largely male leadership team looks at this woman, she looks anxious, she's sweating, she's turning red. What does that say? She's uncomfortable in this leadership position. She's doesn't know her numbers. She's not articulate. And so the coaching helps them to develop methods for dealing with all of these issues and develop a clarity of vision and to really be clear what one wants to accomplish as a leader and
Mm-hmm.
break that down into small steps and looking at how will you go about accomplishing those steps so that you arrive at developing and presenting that vision that you have. Women are so much better relationally than men are. They're usually dependent upon, there are women engineers who are also more reserved, but for the most part, women tend to be more relational and communicative. And so in terms of leadership, there's a sense of really looking at their direct reports and listening to them and reassuring them and caring for them and caring for what happens
Mm-hmm.
and and how important that is to develop that and to really see the results when you listen to your direct reports in a caring and attentive way and give them a sense of purpose, give them a sense of how they're contributing to the overall mission
Mm-hmm.
of the team and the overall mission of the department and the company, and tell them how valued their contributions are. And so in this process, women develop a real strong sense of I am a leader, I am a confident leader, I am a visionary leader. And then there are like all kinds of little tactical things like if you're going to be doing a presentation, don't wear silk scarves when you're going through perimenopause because it holds the heat in, you know,
Okay.
right? Always have a glass of ice water right
Yeah.
next to you so that you can put your hand on it, which will lower the body temperature. So funny and helpful tactical things like that.
So important to talk about it.
It really is.
I think I wanted to ask you about that because in addition to the leaders like helping themselves, you're also passionate about having this, what do you call it, menopausitive workplace
Mm-hmm.
where businesses should have these menopause policies and training. So can you tell us a little bit about, are you working on that and why is this important? Is this changing in organizations?
It is changing. And I tell you, I started doing this work about a dozen years ago, doing the research for it. And I was stunned to see that nothing was being talked about in the United States. I mean, menopause was still a taboo topic. It didn't show up in any literature. Nobody was writing about it, certainly in the context of the workplace, never mind individual women's lives. And so, in the context of my research, I stumbled upon organizations in the UK that were working on this very successfully. And so I connected with them. We did a few Zoom meetings about what they were doing, and we talked about how important it is for people around a woman, her direct reports, her the person that she reports directly to, the leadership team, that when she's going through menopause, this is not the woman going crazy. She's capable of doing her job. It's not funny. And it's important to not demean the woman. Also, it's important not to make assumptions. So, that example that I gave of a woman having a hot flash in a presentation, a leadership team, that's an actual real life example of the woman being removed from the leadership of her team because her team lost confidence in her because she was late for meetings and she seemed more emotional and she didn't seem to be paying attention to the goals of the team. And
Hmm.
so she was silently struggling going through menopause. And if she had been able to go to her boss and say, this is what's happening, I need some support around this. And she was able to say to her team, this is what's happening. I'm not failing you. I'm just
Yeah.
having my own private summer over here. And it's a real challenge to deal with. And so companies understanding that and making sure that the woman's colleagues and leadership understand it, that it's seen as something as normal as pregnancy,
Hmm.
except every woman is going to go through it.
Yes. Yeah.
Every woman is going to go
Yes.
through it.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And that it comes with certain complications that are unique to each woman. Just as if a woman decides to get pregnant, her pregnancy is going to be different than someone else who might be pregnant. And and to have some policies in place that may allow the woman to work from home if she's had a sleepless night because of insomnia and night sweats, or she's having a particularly emotional day, or she's irritable, she's on edge, or she's experiencing a lot of physical pain. I mean, menopause impacts every single system in the woman's body. And I could get technical about that in terms of where the hormones reside in the body, but it impacts every system
Yes.
in the body. And so it's going to impact her emotional state, her cognitive state, her bodily comfort, the vasomotor symptoms of hot flashes
Yeah.
and then migraine headaches. And so it's important that companies do understand that this is a phase that women go through and it ends. This is not like all of a sudden your senior
Yes.
person has all of a sudden lost her mind and can no
Right.
longer do her job. Although a lot of very senior women quit their jobs because they personally feel like they're incapable of doing their jobs, and it derails careers. And that is a shame because a
Hmm.
lot of very, very successful and capable and talented and intelligent women fear that all of a sudden they're in cognitive decline or they're so physically ill
Hmm.
that they need to no longer be
Hmm.
in the position that they're in. And so, yes, I'm mission driven
I can see you're
about
very passionate. I can
supporting
see you're
women.
very, I can see you're very passionate about this, and
Yes,
that's
yes.
fantastic. And I wish that, I mean, has this been something that kind of is your mission now, that to get that word out more? And is it, again, have you seen a change? Is it being adopted or?
I've seen a change, Kavita, yes, and
Yeah.
companies are adopting it. I'm working more individually with women on it, and some companies have brought me in to do presentations on menopause to help people in the company to understand menopause. And I'm delighted that a lot of companies are really getting on board with this and developing menopause policies. But my work right now is focused on the individual women that I work with, and they're coming to me and asking, how do I stay on an even keel with my leadership and developing my leadership skills while I'm in this topsy-turvy
Yes.
period of time?
Yes. Yes. So important. And it's incredible that you, as you said, like what, to 15 years ago, it wasn't even really even looked upon or talked about. So
It wasn't, and now it's all
yeah.
over the
Yeah,
place.
now it is. Yeah.
I mean, you can't swing a broomstick without bumping into the
Oprah's
next
talking about it.
podcast.
Oprah's talking.
Oh, you're talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. Michelle Obama's talking
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
I mean, and which is fantastic,
Just fantastic.
absolutely
Yes.
fantastic.
Yes.
And I'm delighted that the company that I initially contacted in the UK, which is called Henpeck, has grown enormously, and they've done amazing work in the UK. They have now a certification where a company can be certified as a menopause friendly organization.
Really? Wow.
And and they do work internationally. So a lot of big companies that are global companies that have big offices in the UK have had trainings now in the US. And so it's spreading like wildfire,
Yeah.
which is
That's
a
great.
really, really great, great
Right.
thing. which does give me the freedom in terms of my mission to really work with individual women
Yes.
and
Yes.
talk about what's explicitly happening with their leadership journey.
Yes. Yes. I mean, so many important causes that you're passionate about, and thanks for sharing that one. And the next one, I guess, which is huge, is supporting around diversity and inclusion and anti-racism in the workplace.
Yes.
The huge topic, I know, but I think you say that the world will be saved by women.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about your experience from your clients as well as what you've seen throughout your years of as a psychologist and in the organizations. How do have organizations? I know there's a lot of talk about D&I and diversity inclusion, but is it actually really being, is there really a change? Is it really true? And how can individually and collectively, how can we support the vision?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know it's a lot of questions. I think I asked you four in a row, but
That's all right. That's all right. It all weaves together.
yes.
DEI historically has been a box checking activity. And so people who have moved into the DEI space over the past, I would say, decade are passionate about it and are doing a very good job holding companies' feet to the fire about this is not just an exercise of saying, yep, we've got a DEI team. That's taken care of. That box is checked. We have 3 people of color in the organization. No, none of them are on the board, but we'll
Yeah.
get there. And now it's become a much more top line promise
Mm.
of companies to really get serious about it. And what's going on culturally moves us in that direction. The George Floyd experience in our culture has broadened an awareness of how important it is for people to be racially aware and for people to be honest with themselves about their own biases. Of course, I'm also vigorously committed to anti-Semitism. As a Jewish woman, I'm so offended by the rise of anti-Semitism
Yes.
around the world and around this country and unnerved by it. And so all of these areas are important for people to talk about individually with their companions, with their community, to challenge their own assumptions about things, to challenge their own biases, and to really bring it into the workplace and to speak up when something looks like there's a component to it that is based on a negative bias, is based on a negative assumption. And to have empathy
Mm-hmm.
for what other people are going through. No, it doesn't matter what the marginalized community is. A person may be a person of color, or they may not have English as their first language. It may be their second language. Maybe the person has a disability of some kind. Maybe the person has some autism. Maybe the person has a physical disability or
Yes.
even a deformity in some way.
Yes.
And to be able to look at that person's a human person
Yeah.
just like me,
Yes.
just like me. And how would I feel if I was being marginalized the same way I'm seeing this person be marginalized, or that I am doing the marginalizing?
Yes.
And to really bring ourselves to task and to have our awareness be acute and see it as important and require that leadership be aware
Yes.
and accountable.
Yes. I mean, who makes the definition of what is normal, right?
Mm-hmm. Psychologically, it's an indefinite point on the top of a bell curve that doesn't even exist. It's just
Right.
conceptual.
Right. It's interesting how there's is a this perception of normality, and then people who, you see somebody, they don't fit the mold. I mean, as an East Indian woman, growing up,
Mhm,
obviously there was a lot of racism when I was younger. I
mhm,
mean, now obviously not so much, but I completely hear you. As a Jewish woman, as an Indian woman, there's a lot of that. And in the corporate world, I could feel it, especially when you were trying to get into the higher levels.
mhm, mhm. Right,
So,
right.
but I think you're right in that socially, when we see things around us going on in the world, and we can't ignore them. We can't ignore what's
Mhm,
happening. So I think
right.
it's really pertinent and important to talk about these things. And are you also working with organizations around this topic as well? Or are you, again,
I am not. I am not. I work again, I work with individual women
yeah, yeah,
around it because sometimes because of culture, we have internalized
mhm,
biases
yes,
that we believe what culture says about us in
yes,
some way, and we need to work with that. But there are really wonderful people out there working on really serious issues of diversity, equality, inclusion, and belonging.
hmm,
Belonging is a big
hmm.
part of
That's
that.
yeah,
And ageism has to be part of that DEI equation.
yes,
And so there are terrific people, terrific organizations that I know who are doing that kind of work. And so I'm content to have when individual women come to me and say, I need help in this area,
yes.
there for them.
That's fantastic. And I believe, Barbara, that you are also, your focus is now, as you were saying about the whole ageism thing that's going on, is that now I think you're focusing also on serving women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Mhm.
Is that your, and beyond?
Right.
Is that what's happening next? What's next for you? And is this
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
your focus moving forward? Maybe you want to share what's in store for you next.
Yes, yes. Well, actually, there are two things that are in store for me that I'm very enthused about. I'm still working with midlife women on their leadership development and a lot of like looking at life coaching, really supporting women who are going through these issues in their lives and supporting that because I'm so dedicated to helping women, particularly going through that gnarly stage that is inclusive of menopause. But I have so many colleagues who are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s who are vibrant, intelligent, exciting women
Mhm.
who are, they're still working at whatever it is. They're not done yet.
Yes.
They're still working inside of companies. They're in very, very senior positions. They run their own companies. They're CEOs. They're heads of philanthropic organizations. They're extraordinarily creative. But there's a lot of finger drumming about, hey, I'm still vibrant. I'm because we're living healthier longer.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
so I felt it was really important to address this segment of women's lives. And so I have created and in the process of launching Restless Ambition, which addresses that finger drumming of women in their 80s. It's like, oh, okay, I may be done in the corporate world, but I'm not done.
Not done
I
yet.
want, I want to make a difference. I want to go out there and contribute something. I wonder what it is I want to contribute. And so that's I love the conversations that I have with
Yes.
women.
I love that
Um,
term, restless ambition. That's fantastic.
yes, isn't it
Yes.
wonderful?
It's
Isn't it
fantastic. Yeah.
wonderful? Yeah. And that came out of a conversation that I was having with one of these women. And I said, and there's like all this restless ambition. And all of a sudden I was like, yeah, yeah, that's the name of the
That's
program. That's it. Yeah. Uh,
fantastic.
And the other thing that I'm doing, Kavita, which is my own personal purpose and meaning, is I've had a camera in my hand since I was a young, very young child.
Hmm.
And as I got older, and of course as I got involved in my education, getting through my master's and my doctorate, and then beginning my work professionally, the camera got put on a back burner
Okay.
because I was just so involved in so many other things. Well, the camera is now on the front burner, and I'm back doing photography, and it's really exciting. It's wonderful. I'm doing fine art photography, and that's something that I have a lot of us have these electronic calendars that have different colors for the different meetings that they have. I
Yes.
now have a color in my calendar, a category. This is my creative time.
Oh my
And
God, that's wonderful.
and I block it out on my calendar. This is a
Yes.
time I'm going to be spending the entire afternoon going out and taking pictures, or I'm going to be working on the after process of my photographs. And I love it.
That's
It's very exciting and fulfilling. And I definitely recommend women really looking at how do they want to express themselves creatively.
yes. Congratulations. That's
Thanks.
that's
Thanks.
wonderful. And that just gave me the chills because I often, well, not often, one of the main components of what I do with my clients is what kind of passions do you have that maybe have been buried?
Hmm.
And how can you dig those up? Because if you dig up those passions that we kind of
Yes.
put away, like in your case, the camera, photography, it
Hmm.
just brings out so much excitement and like new feelings and new passions. And it's like, yeah,
Joy.
when you were talking about it, I could see her lighting up. So
Yes. Yes. It
it
brings joy.
brings joy. It just brings
It
happiness.
brings
Yes.
joy. And we need that in our lives.
Are you planning on putting a book together?
Not necessarily a book, but I do plan on exhibiting.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you
So
said, is there any particular theme, or you said fine art, like any particular?
it's specifically macro art of flowers.
Oh
And
wow.
so really looking at the my cat has just decided to wake up and join the conversation.
Uh-oh.
It's really is looking at the parts of flowers in a very intimate way, looking at flowers in a way that we might not really see if we're
Yes.
not looking at them closely, and the various designs and patterns and textures that show up and the beautiful colors.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
so that's what I'm doing, and it's really fun,
Well, you'll
really.
have to keep us informed and let me know if you have an exhibit, and yeah, it would be wonderful to
Absolutely,
have members. And that's fantastic.
absolutely.
Um, well, this has been amazing. I really appreciate your perspective on all these topics. They're really important topics. And I just thought maybe if you had, do you have any last kind of, before we wrap up, any kind of last thoughts on maybe a woman that's listening that's thinking, okay, well, I'm in this stage, whether it's midlife or in restless ambition stage where what do I do next? Yeah, is this normal or any words that you'd have to say to that woman that might be listening?
Right, right. I think the most important thing, Kavita, is to normalize it.
Yeah.
And but normalize it in a way that is personally affirming. And so sometimes when I say normalize it, a woman might hear, oh, well, I'm not, everybody goes through this. This is nothing. I shouldn't really be paying any attention to it. And that is not what I want to say. What I want to say is what you're going through is normal, and let's really look at how you are experiencing it. How can we help you to experience it in a way that is going to be uh, moving you in a
Hmm.
really positive direction, and developing insight and self-appreciation and upping self-care around it, and really looking at this time as I have a whole new vision of leadership.
Hmm.
How do you amplify that? Or, as you remarked, Kavita, what are the hidden passions that may have been stuffed in the back of a closet in your mind somewhere? And to really feel like I deserve this. I
Yeah,
deserve this. This is my time.
I love that. I deserve this. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Just before we end, thank you for that wonderful comment. How can we find you? And if anyone is looking for your guidance, maybe you could just share where they can find you.
Sure, sure. My website is atimeofmyown.com.
Okay, fantastic.
And so there's contact information on there. Of course, I'm available at Barbara at atimeofmyown.com. And my phone number is available there as well if someone wants to give me a call or text me and say help. Um, yeah,
We'll
I've got a
have.
big presentation in the boardroom and I have all silk shirts.
Oh,
What do I
yes,
do?
that's right. We'll go
Buy a new
shopping for
shirt.
cotton shirts.
Exactly, quickly. Yes.
Well, we'll have all your links and everything on our show notes so anyone can access those. And again, Barbara, I was honored to have you on, and I think I'm looking forward to collaborating with you in the future. And really, thank you for all you do.
Yes, thank you for having me, Kavita, and thank you for the work that you do and the way that you contribute and support women's lives.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You take care.
Take care. Bye bye.